Rory Calhoun finally breaks silence on Randolph Scott. Rory Calhoun was born Francis Timothy McCow on August 8, 1922 in Los Angeles, California. He overcame a rough, troubled youth to rise into the spotlight as a beloved star of film and television during the golden age of Hollywood. Raised during the Great Depression, he endured hardship and instability, often running afoul of the law as a teenager. By the time he was in his early 20s, he had spent time in a federal reformatory for auto theft and had even been behind bars for robbery. It was a dark chapter that could have ended his life before it began. Yet, it became the foundation of his legend. When he eventually turned his life around, Calhoun never shied away from his past. In interviews, he admitted his mistakes, often crediting his years of struggle for giving him the grit and realism that later defined his acting style. His transition to Hollywood seemed almost accidental, the product of fate and charisma. After his release, he worked odd jobs, including as a mechanic, logger, and cowboy until a chance meeting with actor Alan Ladd changed everything. Ladd's wife, Sue Carroll, was a talent agent who saw something magnetic in the tall, broad-shouldered young man with piercing eyes. She signed him, gave him the stage name Rory Calhoun, and sent him to acting school. From there, his ascent was swift. Rory made his screen debut in the early 1940s and quickly found himself cast in supporting roles for major studios. His natural athleticism, deep voice, and rugged good looks made him an ideal fit for westerns, which were the height of their popularity. He appeared in numerous films throughout the 1950s, such as The Red House, 1947, With a Song in My Heart, 1952, and River of No Return, 1954, opposite Marilyn Monroe and Robert Mitchum. Audiences admired his quiet confidence. He wasn't a loud or over-the-top actor, but his stoic strength and subtle charisma drew people in. Perhaps what made Calhoun stand out most was his authenticity. Unlike many of his peers who merely played cowboys, Rory was one. He knew how to ride, rope, and survive the elements. When he starred in his long-running television series, The Texan, 1958 to 1960, audiences believed in him not just because of his acting, but because the role reflected who he truly was. The series was a success, and Calhoun became a staple of the small screen, admired for his heroic persona and gentlemanly charm. Behind the scenes, Calhoun lived life on his own terms. He was known for his independence, his kindness to fans, and his loyalty to friends. But he also had a mischievous streak and a reputation as something of a Hollywood rebel. Gossip columnists loved to write about his romantic escapades, while directors loved his reliability and professionalism on set. His complex personality, tough but tender, wild yet thoughtful, made him both an actor and a legend. As the Western genre faded from dominance in the late 1960s, Calhoun successfully reinvented himself, taking roles in television, low-budget films, and later, even in comedies and action movies. He appeared in projects like Motel Hell, 1980, proving he could adapt and surprise audiences even in his later years. His versatility and willingness to evolve kept him working steadily for decades long after many of his contemporaries had retired. Rory Calhoun's personal life was as colorful and eventful as the roles he played on screen, and his marriages reflected the complexities and passions of a man who lived life fully both in front of and behind the camera. His first marriage was to actress and singer Lita Barron, a woman who shared his glamorous Hollywood lifestyle and understood the unique pressures of fame. The couple married in 1948 during the height of Calhoun's rise in the entertainment industry. At the time, he was gaining recognition as one of Hollywood's most handsome leading men, appearing in westerns and adventure films that showcased his rugged good looks and natural charisma. Lita, also a talented performer in both music and film, frequently joined him at high-profile functions, with the two of them constituting one of Hollywood's most stunningly attractive and gossiped-about couples of the post-war era. The couple had 3 daughters, Cindy, Tammy, and Lori, whom Calhoun cherished, despite his tough career preventing him many times from returning home. Yet, the tension of celebrity life and Calhoun's reputation as a magnetic ladies' man eventually put pressure on their marriage. Hollywood gossip columns would regularly connect him with one female co-star or another, and though some of these were blown out of proportion, they did take their toll on family life. By the late 1960s, the fissures in the marriage had widened irreparably. In 1969, Lita Barron publicly stated her husband's philandering as ground for their separation, a brave move for those times. She even mentioned in interviews that she could forgive many things, but not lies. A headline quote, which gave the world a glimpse behind the scenes of personal turmoil amidst all the glitz. More than 2 decades into their cohabitation, their marriage legally came to an end in 1970, thus marking the close of one of Hollywood's longest-running relationships hailing from the golden era. Despite the pain of his first divorce, Calhoun did not give up on love. In 1971, he found companionship again with Sue Rodas, a British journalist who was taken with something more than just his film legacy, his wit and warmth. Their relationship represented a different chapter for Calhoun, a more mature, settled period in his life. Unlike his marriage to Lita, which had unfolded under the withering glare of publicity from Hollywood, his relationship with Sue was far more private and low-key. The two shared deep mutual respect, and friends of Calhoun often mentioned that Sue helped bring stability and tranquility into his world. Unfortunately, after several years together, their union faced impediments that led to a divorce in 1979. Yet, love had not entirely vanished between them. Time apart allowed both Calhoun and Sue to reflect on what they truly valued in each other. The bond that had initially brought them together never fully faded, and in a near-cinematic turn of events worthy of one of his films, Rory and Sue opted to remarry in 1982. Their second marriage was quiet and peaceful, defined by the friendship of companionship rather than glamour. By that time, Calhoun had long since stepped away from the glare of the limelight and was enjoying life in a slower gear. He spoke fondly of his later years with Sue many times and was appreciative of a sense of understanding and forgiveness that their renewed union brought. For decades, Hollywood insiders spoke about two of the most iconic Western stars of all time and the friendship and rivalry that existed between Rory Calhoun and Randolph Scott. Both men epitomized rugged masculinity and charm, an old-school cowboy code that defined the golden age of Westerns. And yet, for as much as their career paths dove and weaved, Calhoun speaking publicly as Scott was something the world rarely, if ever, heard. Until now, in a rare, deeply candid interview given late in his life, Calhoun finally decided to share his honest views on Randolph Scott, the man he respected, envied, and at times quietly competed with. Randolph Scott, Calhoun began, was the kind of man you couldn't help but admire. He carried himself with this quiet dignity, like he was born in the saddle. Even off camera, he had that cowboy grace that most of us try to play. For him, it was just natural. Calhoun's voice softened when speaking about Scott's screen presence, explaining that his calm confidence had deeply influenced other actors in the Western genre. He wasn't loud, he didn't brag, and he didn't need to. You could feel the respect in the room when he walked in. He didn't have to demand it. He earned it. But Calhoun would also admit there was an undercurrent of competition between them. We were both leading men, both tall, both trying to make our mark in a business that didn't have room for too many cowboys at once. I'll be honest, I envied how effortless it all seemed for him. He made being a star look easy, and that used to drive me crazy when I was younger. Calhoun chuckled, remembering his early frustrations trying to follow in Scott's boots. I'm out there breaking my back trying to prove myself, and Randolph just stands there, tips his hat, says 3 words, and steals the whole damn scene. Despite the competitive tension, Calhoun said there was no animosity, only admiration. Randolph wasn't the type to play dirty. In fact, he was one of the nicest men I ever met in this town. Hollywood's a cutthroat place. You learn that fast. But Scott never let that poison touch him. He treated everyone from producers to extras with the same respect. That taught me a lot about the kind of man I wanted to be. Calhoun also reflected on how Randolph Scott's off-screen life fascinated him. He lived quietly, didn't care much for the spotlight, and that always impressed me. The studios wanted him at every party, every premiere, but he'd rather be at his ranch with his horses. That's a rare thing, a man in this business who doesn't need the applause. He paused thoughtfully before adding, maybe that's why audiences trusted him. He wasn't selling an image. He was the image. When asked if Scott ever offered him advice during their years in Hollywood, Calhoun smiled knowingly. He wasn't the kind to sit you down and give speeches, but he led by example. He once told me, Rory, don't ever chase fame. It runs faster than any horse, and if you catch it, it'll buck you off. I never forgot that. He was right, too. The times I chased it, I paid for it. Paid. Calhoun revealed that his admiration for Scott deepened after seeing how he aged gracefully and on his own terms. When Randolph retired, he didn't make a big fuss about it. He just rode off literally into his own kind of sunset. No scandals, no headlines, just peace. I respected that more than anything. He knew when to quit, and not many of us do. Yet Calhoun also shared that there was a part of him that wished they had become closer friends. I always wanted to sit down with him, man to man, and tell him how much he influenced me. But in those days, you didn't say things like that, especially cowboy to cowboy. We were too damn proud. He laughed softly, his voice tinged with nostalgia. I think he knew, though. I think he always knew. Reflecting on his own legacy, Calhoun acknowledged the shadow Scott cast over the Western genre. If you ask me, every actor who ever put on a cowboy hat owes something to Randolph Scott. He set the standard. I just try to ride somewhere close behind him. As the conversation drew to a close, Calhoun's tone grew reflective. Randolph was more than a movie star. He was a symbol of a time when men didn't need to shout to be heard. He taught me that real strength comes from restraint, from knowing who you are and not letting Hollywood change that. And that, he concluded, is something I've carried with me every day since. Rory Calhoun's words revealed more than admiration. They revealed humility, the kind only a man looking back with honesty and gratitude could show. For all of the glitz and glory of Hollywood, Calhoun's tribute painted a portrait of two cowboys who shared not just the screen, but a quiet, enduring respect that defined an entire era of Western heroes. Rory Calhoun died on April 28, 1999 at the Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank, California, bringing to a close a long, colorful, and often unpredictable life that had spanned 76 remarkable years. His death was attributed to complications from emphysema and diabetes, two chronic illnesses which during his later years had gradually weakened his body. Emphysema, a disease most often linked with lifetime smoking, slowly erodes the lungs' capacity for function, making even the most mundane tasks, such as walking or talking, breathlessly exhausting. Like many men of his generation and profession, Calhoun had lived a rugged outdoorsman's lifestyle, smoking, drinking, and working long hours on film sets under the hot California sun. These habits, though emblematic of the golden era in Hollywood masculinity, would take their toll on his health over time. During his final years, declining health limited his appearances in front of the camera, but he remained a figure beloved by fans and colleagues who admired not only his talent, but also his tenacity. He had fought emphysema for several years, with medical care and the occasional hospital visit managing the disease. His diabetes further complicated the situation, sapping his energy and overall well-being. Despite his health issues, those who knew him best often made a point to say that Calhoun kept his sense of humor and dignity until his final days. He would be visited regularly by family and close friends and an assortment of admirers fascinated by the blend of old Hollywood grace and cowboy grit. When he died, Rory Calhoun was 76 years of age, a respectable number for a man who had lived so daring and complete a life. Few would have forecast in his early days of fame that the rough-around-the-edges rebel who once did time in prison would live to the day when he was a respected elder statesman of Hollywood's Western genre. His longevity was a testimony to his resilience and willpower. Many in the entertainment industry paid homage to him following his death and remembered him for his professionalism, his easygoing personality on set, and the way he could reflect the spirit of the American frontier, both on screen and off.